Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yep,
hear you.
you're good to go, dude.
Perfect.
All right, all right, all right. So, hey everybody, welcome to this edition of an FCM Pod. It's a kind of unusual one. Normally, we used to have stuff in the off season, but that kind of faded out. Normally, we have a draft pod. But right now, we're doing an off season pod, and it's kind of not necessarily about what's going to happen in the upcoming season. It is to commemorate the 150th anniversary of FCM. I just can't believe what this league has turned into about 15, 16 years later, going on 16 years. And I guess we'll lead off with obviously you got to thank Andy for everything he does. I mean, it's a tremendous sacrifice for somebody to do what he does and not, and not be a player and not actively be there. He really loves the league. He loves the game. And none of this is possible without him. So really just a big ups to Andy before we start all this. Really appreciate it. And yeah, so I guess we'll jump off. We got an agenda here. We will probably, we'll take turns going in, and if somebody wants to jump in, they can jump in. You know what I mean? We'll keep it like a round table. And overall, we'll start off with the agenda. We're trying to focus on the past 49 seasons. Some combos can leak before that, you know what I mean? Because history does have certain context and stuff like that. But we're trying to capture the last like 49, 50 seasons. I believe we did a pod that came at the century mark. There was a pod, and they did a lot of awards, a lot of milestones and such things. And I think one, I don't know if Mizzy handled it or who was handling that at the time. But here we are, 150 seasons in, and we'll jump right into it. So I'm going to ask you guys, trade talks, right? Everybody has their different way of going about it. Everybody has their different way of starting trade talks, posting in the trades alerts. I remember there was a time you would never see screenshots in there, and all of a sudden, somebody start putting screenshots, and everybody knows this guy's making deals left and right, right? And so now everybody jumps in and puts the screenshots, and then you have the little thing where it's like, wait, his stats aren't that good, but his skills are good. Only show the skills tab. Don't show what he's done the last 10 seasons. Hide that stuff. You know what I mean? So a lot of different ways trade negotiations has changed over the past 50 seasons. Um, and I want to ask you guys, trade negotiation do's and don'ts, right? I see this a lot when I talk trade or when when I'm conducting trade or when I show interest in a player and stuff. There's some things where I'm like, all right, that's fine, and then there's some things where I'm like, you could have, you could have did something differently there where it would have made it more smoother for both of us. I'm pulling teeth over here. I feel like I'm negotiating trade with myself in Madden. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to build the trade myself, and that's all good and dandy. But then if I spend days building it and trying to negotiate with myself and trying to nitpick at what you might want for you to just say, you know what, I think I'm going to keep them. It made me lose my hair, right? So I guess I'll start with Hick, longtime GM of the LA Dodgers right now. You know what I mean? He's definitely been a huge veteran GM. Been around for it has to be like over 100 seasons now. That's what it feels like. Hick, trades do's and don'ts. What do you feel is a pet peeve of yours? What do you feel like you like what GMs do when they are negotiating and stuff like that? What are your thoughts?
I think it's the best way to approach it is just like, hey, here's what I'm interested in, here's who I like, and go back and forth. Because sometimes it's like you mentioned, pulling teeth with certain people, not thinking of anybody in particular, but it's like, oh, okay, I'm looking for this sort of thing. Do you have this? Or oh, I like these guys, and then it's like, okay, I'm looking for something like this, and it's like, okay, if I have a certain type I'm looking for, I'm going to tell that and it's like, oh yeah, not gonna fit. Because more often than not, it's you're running into a guy and it's like, oh yeah, it's actually not gonna match. I feel like there's guys I talk to all the time, and it's like, oh yeah, we just never on the same page. But it's very helpful to be communicative and like, hey, within 5 messages, there's not going to be something as opposed to going back and forth for 3 days, and then it's like, oh, sorry, it's not actually going to work. So yeah, definitely with you there. When it comes to the whole like oversight of trades, I don't love that necessarily. I think it's basically you should be able to run your own team as long as you're not like brand new. Like for example, when Joe was first starting, it was like, hey, I'm happy to help, gonna jump in and do anything that, is gonna be helpful, even when he was on his own team at that point. But, aside from that, it's like everybody is an adult. They know what they're doing at this point. There's no like just rookies who are super green here. So I don't love the idea of just, you know, saying, hey, you should do this, you should do this. It's like, as long as you have a guy is going to be sticking around, just let him eat a bad trade, I would say.
Definitely feel that. Joe, what are your thoughts?
I'm probably the guy who's causing all the pain. But that's because I've got years of experience in EHM leagues, and I don't know. It's always just been the way I negotiate, and some guys are not going to like it. I've already had some guys say a couple things, and that's okay, right? It's I go into every trade talk knowing that the chances of it being successful are probably pretty slim to begin with. Sometimes I don't quite know where I'm headed either in a discussion, so it's hard to come with like I'm looking for a lefty reliever with 80 control and 85 movement. I don't know necessarily what I'm looking for because something might catch my eye and that might be more interesting to me at the time. So, I guess the biggest thing is like just be courteous with guys, and I've tried to be, just kind and just say, hey, look, if you send me something, I'm in the office, I'm working, try to get back to you. But how many of us have had the trade talks over several days and it goes absolutely nowhere? It's part of the game. And I bet you it happens a lot in real life too.
Never happens with me. I not like if you're not with it, I don't give a shit. I'm not. That's it. You're lost. Like but I'll get into that a little later. Hokey, you there?
Yeah, yeah. So I
All
mean,
right.
you know what, Joe? I would say I don't think you cause any problems. I don't think really since you joined the league, you're probably one of the people that were newer and actually competent. Not maybe like still learning the game, but like just in the way that you do. And I mean, I know you and I have had a couple trade conversations where you basically told me you don't like my team. And that's totally fine. And then I try to convince you to like somebody because I want something from you. And I think
Exactly.
yeah, like which is fine. But I don't think there's been any animosity at any point. And I would say I'm probably the guy that people thinks might be somewhat difficult to trade with. I know Hick always hates trading with me. It always feels like, um, you know,
We get it done
and
sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know
Hokey.
what? It usually works out, and PR. You and I think it's just we like opposite players. All the players that you like, I hate. Somehow they turn out good, but it's just one of those things. I think, when all is said and done, there are people. The thing that I hate, there are people, and we'll kind of get that later when we talk about who is active and who is not active. But like I've had conversations with a couple teams and you feel like they finally respond and you respond back like 5 minutes later. And then there's nothing for 3 days. And then they make some other stupid trade that you're just like, oh, okay. And then I've literally messaged one person like seven days in a row and I got nothing. And I was just like, that's fine. Just give me the answer of no, I don't want that player. Like I will say I probably am somebody who pushes my players a lot. You know, we can talk about the pitcher that I just traded to Kansas City. I have been pushing Train for 2 seasons to trade him, not
You
because
have.
he's bad, but because I wanted to make money for winter ball. But I also wasn't going to give him up for nothing. Finally, we got to the off season, and I was like, I need an extra 20 million for winter ball. I could only get 15. I took it. He'll end up pitching well. In the last season of his contract, he's probably going to be garbage, but he's also really good now. So he's still better than some of the pitchers that went in free agency. So at the end of the day, I think, one, not targeting the new people, I think that's why it's super important to have that. And I know that I usually am considered the person that targets new people. Even when Joe started, I'm pretty sure I had a conversation with him and I was like, yeah, like I'd be interested in making a trade, but you should probably check with Andy before you do anything with me just to have the extra piece. And then I offered to give him any advice that he wanted. So like I don't do it you know, intentionally to screw over somebody. I just am like, oh, this seems like a really good trade for me. Why would I not accept it? So I think that's part of it. But yeah, hopefully that kind of is my piece with that.
No, I definitely see where Hoki's coming from. And I will say, Joe, right? It is better as a brand new GM to be a hard ass than it is
Oh yeah.
somebody who wants to make trades. You were a hard ass. Like, no, and I mean that with all love, because the De La Reta deal, I kind of had a feeling. I was like, I'm making this trade and I'm trying to move cash around, stuff like that. And I ended up having to sign a third baseman. And I looked in the mid-season at De La Reta, and I'm like, wait, this guy's goddamn hitting. He's exactly what I needed. I kind of basically created a problem for myself. And you held firm on what you wanted. And you know what I mean? And you got that out of me, So it definitely better to be conservative and wait and bide your time and learn before you're going and trading multiple draft classes for the first pick and stuff like that, for sure.
Yep.
And to Hoki's point as well, there's also a point where like Hokie said, we don't like the same players. And so as trade partners, it ain't gonna work. Like Hoki's part is so much more different than almost anybody else's park. And that makes it very difficult to trade with him. I don't like
Sure.
power hitting, power throw. I don't like power lefties. It just doesn't work in my park. And Hokie can't like drop value just because of that. Because honestly, like in his park, they're freaking sub 2. Like maybe there's a level where I can be like, well, that's sub 2 or it's a 2.5 ERA, and your park is going to go north of 3 for mine. So this is why I'm going to give you a little less, and we'll see if Hokie gets that. Hokie, like from my experience, and I know Hokie's a busy guy. I get ghosted by Hokie sometimes, and by ghosted I mean he shows up about 3 days later when I've already made the trade with another team, and he's like, yeah, no, I'm interested. And I'm like, I just traded him to Kansas City. You know what I mean? So, that ends up going. But I do think that like for me, a big don't is don't go say I'm interested in this person. And I lay out, here's a deal I think is fair that we can work at. And you just don't contribute to the compromise, right? Like I am doing all of the work trying to create a deal out of this, and you either ghost it or you say you're not interested. It's like if you're gonna go and say I'm interested in this person, go and say I'm interested. I'm willing to move this prospect, and this prospect. Also, my first, second, and third, or my first, second, and fourth are on the table, right? Right then and there, I know where we're sitting, and I can know whether we're gonna waste each other's time or not. You know what I
Tommy,
mean?
the only problem is, I think, and I'm sure you guys would agree, there's probably a good maybe 10 to 12 GMs who will be there to talk trade and be available to you. Then you've got another 5 or 6 that are around, but not to that same degree. And then there's the remaining guys who just like, frankly, I hate to say it, there's not around enough in the Discord. They're not looking, they may not either be looking for trades or they're not looking to talk at all. And they're MIA. And the only thing that fixes that is activity. And if you don't have it to like a huge degree, and I will say in this league, I think it's actually pretty good. But if you don't have it overall and you got 10 guys that are just not participating, right there, 10% or the 30% of the teams are not even active in trade talks. There's some teams that I've never clicked on in the game, and I've been here for several months, and I'm telling you, I've never clicked on. And it's just because there's no GM there for me to even talk to, at least as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I could probably guess the 10 that would be there. And, for me, when I go to trade a player, if I know that, like, I don't know. One of the pictures I put up, like I knew I was going to get like messaged by like 7, 8 teams instantly. So like I'm like whatever. One of the players that I was like, oh, I'm not going to get much for, and I'll just take whatever. I messaged everybody, and I also messaged the people that I knew were not going to respond, and they surprisingly did respond and said like no, and I was just like, well, that's not surprising because I don't think you've made a trade in 5 years. So like, and I don't mean 5 years of mogul, I mean literally 5 years.
But that's
So
like decades.
yeah, no, like I GD is somebody who I'm sure we'll
You
talk
can't
about
even.
later, and all I'm going to say is he's active. He never posts in Discord or anything like that. He only drafts his own players. He does not make trades. You could have the best player, and he will not take it. You like PR's entire team just went to free agency. I don't think he put in a single bid, and it's not because of activity. I'm guarantee you he probably looked at the website today. It's just his state of mind is to build a team only from drafting, and like that's fine, but I also find that it's really hard to build a team with one first round draft pick a season for however many seasons you're going, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, kind of everyone has that piece, and I can say at least for myself, I just looked at the last message I sent to Joe, where we were talking, where I was basically trying to pawn train off to him, and I said he would
Thank you
be
for
better.
being honest.
Hey, I don't lie. So like I messaged Joe and I said he's better than your second, fourth, and fifth pitcher. Statistically, you know, whether or not he agrees or not, that's what I'm going with. And when it comes to pitchers, at least I have the reputation that I'm probably the best at selecting pitchers. Doesn't mean I'm right 100% of the time,
It's
but
pretty easy in your park.
uh yeah, but I mean, I think even at drafting,
No,
like,
for sure, for sure. I've come to you for pitching
yeah.
advice for sure. So I,
So,
just
I
joking.
I mean, I think, I think the other half is like there are some people when you go to trade, and the other thing that I really hate is you go to make a trade. I recently have just told people like, this is the player I'm interested in. What do you want from me? Tell me who you want, because the moment I suggest a player, you're going to be like, oh, Hokie wants to get rid of him. That's the reputation I have. So now I'm just like, just tell me what you want. And when you give me a list of 7 players, then I choose the player that I think is fair or
And
that I don't
Hokie,
want.
I really like Train. My problem is that he's going to make 20 million when he's like 37 and 60 overall.
Hey,
That's
hey,
the
hey. 37-year-olds like Lucas Sens can definitely have some some swan song years.
And
And
you
not
know what? Like
not
it's true. He
sorry.
could.
Sorry, I just sorry to cut you off. Okay, I just wanted to introduce. I believe we have Stang at the table. Stang, are you there?
I don't know how to.
Stanger? All right.
we heard him clear his throat, so he has to be there.
Yeah, we heard it. Yo, Stanger, you there? All right.
Yep.
Pokey,
Can you hear
continue.
me?
Oh, yes, Stanger. All right, man. Great to meet you, man. Great to have you on the pod. Just we're really on the first bullet of trades, do's and don'ts. I don't know if you're ready to jump in a little bit, give some of your experience with that, or if you want some more time to kind of look down on the agenda.
Yeah, give me a few more minutes.
No
It is funny with
problem.
staying on here now. It's funny, he is one of the people that he and I are always active, but he and I have almost never come to an agreement on any trades ever. So we just don't see value the same way at all on players. So it's kind of funny that we're talking about that. And
Well,
then he came in.
yeah, that Stang was somebody I've experienced. I think I've only made trades with him on a guy I was trading who had maybe 1 year of service time, non-peaked, who looked like he was going to be a stud, where Stang was like, all right, I'm willing to give this up to have all of this team control. You know what I mean? But I like besides that, Stang doesn't really make a move for somebody he like, how to say it, without longevity involved. You know what I mean? At least from my experience, he's not going to make like the trade I just made with Wi-Fi for Boyd. I don't think Stang would ever trade for a guy like Boyd who's on decline like that, even with how talented Boyd is. That's just kind of the gist Stang has given me in terms of his you know his trading or how he trades and stuff like that for sure. But Hick, I think I wanted to start off the next kind of sub portion with you. Um, Top three trading GMs. It kind of leaks into what we were speaking about. And with this, you're not looking necessarily for GMs who win trades, but GMs you enjoy negotiating with, you feel make the process smooth, as well as GMs who, probably acquire good talent versus what they give up and stuff like that. But who would you say you feel are the top three trading GMs in FCM? I know this is kind of difficult, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of great GMs here, but your top three, what do you think?
I mean, I'm just going to name three that I've worked with, and one of them's in the group here is Hokie. He and I, we come to agreements. I mentioned all the time, fairly often. I feel like it's like every like 2 seasons or something like that. We're making a trade, um, but not just from my perspective, but from like in conversations, not if they're even just fully done deals. The Mellows, always talking with them, always seeing like, hey, what's going on here? Not as many deals done, but really good conversations with them always. And then Wi-Fi as well. Wi-Fi and I go back to when we were running a team together too. So it's people that you're comfortable talking with, people who know what you're looking for, and it's really helpful to have these frank conversations with people.
Yeah, for sure. Wi-Fi is my man. Get that straight. Um, all right. So Wi-Fi, Hokey. Did you have a third? Or
The
you
Mellows.
just two?
Sorry, Armello and John. Sorry.
Oh, Armello and John. All right, four. All right, all right. Um,
Sorry, I just always call
Joe.
them the Mellows. I don't know what else to call them.
Joe, I know that you're relatively new, Joe. You don't need to have three if you don't have it, but who would you say you would group in at the top three GMs for
This
you
is
trading one?
this is like it's going to be such a like dark horse, but I always have the easiest trade conversations with whoever's running Arizona. I don't know why, but I've made like
Whoever's running it.
I don't even know his name,
Yeah.
and we've had good conversations because I think he's a coach, like a soccer coach as well. So we've had good conversation, and we get to deals very simply. He tells me what he's looking for, I tell him what I'm looking for, and somehow, I think we have different players that we like, so it's easy to get a deal going. And then if I had to put up anybody else, I don't know. Again,
You don't have
everybody
to.
it
You can
probably
you can
feels like everybody's pulling teeth with me, and I can appreciate it. Um, so I'm sorry about that for everybody that listens to this, but it's just I don't know. I'm so used to having like 5% of my trade conversations go through that it's just like normal. And again, I assume it's like just part and parcel of being a GM in real life. It's hard to make things line up, I think. And some guys trade just to trade. I will not do that. So like I have
yeah,
a hard like I won't just do it because I'm bored. I need I enjoy it, but I won't do it just to say I did it and I made a move. It won't do anything for my psyche. So
for sure. Hokey.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely have to say, I'm going to return the favor on Hick and say it's pretty easy to deal with Hick. Obviously, I've known him for like 20 years of actual life now, where we've been in different leagues, um, and it seems to always go pretty good. Even if we don't make a trade, the conversation seems to go there. Whether or not one of us decides, we're usually pretty good on value. It's just whether or not one of us wants to pull the trigger. And, I would also say it's just as easy when he says no, he has zero interest in whatever. It kind of works out well. Um, I would say Cadmus is another one that I've always had an easier time. He is usually somebody who, same idea. He'll either say yes or no and kind of say his interest, but he's like always willing to give up something if he needs to, or vice versa. Um, I would have definitely said Andy because, I obviously played a bunch of years with Andy. Him and I, got along pretty well for trading. But if we were to go to active GMs now, I mean, the mellows are pretty easy to deal with as well. It's just that sometimes you have to fight both of them. Like, you know, Armello,
They play
like,
the good cop, bad cop bullshit.
yeah, like,
And John is always
messes.
the good cop.
Oh, see, it's
Like,
funny. I'll message Armello, and he'll be like, "Yeah, I kind of like this," and John's like, "I don't want that crap," and I'm like, "Okay, I don't want to negotiate with you. I'll go talk to Ryan. Like, just give me one." But yeah, that's kind of the three there. One thing I will say, Stang and I, kind of like Hick and I, have obviously been in leagues for 20 plus years, and you know Staying is great to trade with, except if you're me. And I only say this because when him and I were in the same division, you know, when I was Florida and he was Atlanta, he was like, "This is the price for a player. This is the price for you." Because we're in the same division. And, even now that I've flipped to Toronto, I would say him and I have pretty much always been rebuilding at the same time. So we have zero interest in making a trade together. And right now, and that's the only reason since I moved to Toronto. But, realistically, Staying is pretty top tier as well when it comes to trading. It's just with me, it's always been like the hokey tax, which I hate, and I will not pay. So,
dang, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, I don't think there has been ever a time where I want to help Hokie in my own division. Let's be honest. So there's always going to be a Hokie tax on any trade if we're in the same division. But like he said, since he's moved to Toronto, we haven't really done anything. Just haven't had the need to. Like he said, we've been playing this game together for over 20 years at this point, and we've made probably hundreds upon hundreds of trades over that time period. So it just so happens in First Class Mogul that he's always been a rival, and I can't let him escape for cheap.
For sure, I feel that. It's always for me, I think top three trading GMs. I'll tell you what, I have a very easy time trading with Gilly. That Gilly just says, "Here, this is what I want." I tell him this is what I think will work, and he'll either tell me nah, or he'll say, "You know what? If you do this, will work." Like the trade we just made with Moda, it was fantastic. I say, here's what's gonna take to get Moda. He says, "Can you take some? What are we gonna do about salary for Lamb?" I wanted to offload Lamb somehow with Moda or Boyd. I attempted to talk Joe into taking Hovey with Boyd. It wasn't happening. Joe was not gonna commit to that much cash, and neither did Gilly. But
you'd have to pay me to take that contract big time.
Was that the one that was 47 million?
Yeah, 47 million over like the next 4 years. Fuck out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here.
Even
Hey,
us without
man.
payroll could not handle that.
That's right.
No, but I wanted to offload Lamb. I said, "Hey, look, two guys for the bullpen. What's up?" And I said, "Hey, I'll pay some salary. I'll pay 20 million." He says, "Make it 30 million and it's a deal." It was just very smooth. Another person I dealt very smoothly with. It was fantastic. Was someone who's not even in the league anymore, Canadian Mike.
Mhm.
Me and Mike was just it was so smooth, like, and we made it work. Like he said, "I like a guy." I said, "Well, this is who I like here." And it's almost as if he was very courteous and going out of his way to say, "All right, I want to make a deal work with you because I like your guy and I'm gonna help you make it." So I had a very good time trading with Mike.
Are the easiest traders the ones who do well in trades from your guys' vantage point?
I can't say that. it's really hard to evaluate. Like so to call a trade a win or a loss nowadays, I think is a little bit more difficult because, for example, it needs to be clear cut now. Like it
Yeah.
needs to be on some Weimar level shit for you to definitely be for it to be a bad goddamn deal. You know, and it the way trades make, like, it takes years to develop for you to really see how it turns out. I made that trade, I made initially the trade for Boyd. And I took a risk. We didn't know what Boyd would turn out to become. But the Mets got a ring out of it. They got Maxwell, who turned into an ace, and I didn't even really see that happening. I'm going to be honest. You know what I mean? He ended up getting Jacobson and somebody else out of the deal. So, I can't say that the easiest ones are the ones that win their trades. Um, because there's just too many talented traders now. I can't agree with that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would also say, like, when I said my stuff, like, I think Wi-Fi is an absolute gem when it comes to trading. I hate him and I are similar in the sense, like, we value the same players. So trading with him is painful because when I say, "Oh, hey, you like this person? Well, I like this guy." And then he's like, "Yeah, but I like them." And I'm like, "Okay." And vice versa. It's just him and I don't seem like we have done a couple trades together, and it's not like I hate trading with him. By no way is he in the bottom three. It's just he falls somewhere in like the like ninth or 10th GM that I would go for a trade because he just likes the same players. So, if we were ranking, people that seem to win the trades all the time, he would be in my top three. People that I want to trade with, he is not in my top three. Is kind of how I would look at it. And, like, to be honest, Joe, I know you and we made one trade, and it took me a year and a half to get Nelson Moore. And like when I mean that, it like I message you every sim because I remember you telling me like, hey, I just kind of want to see how my team is, and I was like,
Yep.
okay, but he's got no health and he's gonna die. Like there is a point where I'm gonna lose interest. And you know what? At the end of the day, like I know I message you constantly. When you finally messaged me back and was like, "Hey, I'm willing to trade him," I'm like, "Cool. What will it take?" You gave me an answer. It was real easy. So, I mean, I
It
would
won't
definitely
always be.
no. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's fine. But I would say even when you, for example, have said you don't like a player, I don't consider that painful to trade with. I like so once again, like even for you, I would definitely rank you in the top 10, and you're one of the newer guys, with that because it's absolutely fine to trade with you. Same with PR. I know as he said, I usually don't respond right away. And I'll be honest, if somebody messages me between, I don't know, let's say 9 a.m., like anytime from like 1 a.m. to about 6 p.m., I am probably not looking at that message until like 7. And sometimes I get that message at like 9 or 10 p.m. and I'm like gaming and I'm like, oh, I'll look at this. And then the next day rolls around and I'm like, yes, I was supposed to message PR back. and right, like obviously a little bit different there, but yeah, I would just say winning the trade
No.
doesn't make it easy for you because, I think there's a couple people like in the nicest way. I feel like anytime somebody trades with Steve, whoever is the opposite person trading with him is winning the trade. And like with Steve, it's not a shot, but like I have no idea what his thought process is.
It's a shot.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, I never know what his thought process is because I asked about Hugh Severing House last year in the first pick, just because I was like, are you going this guy? And or like, would you be interested in moving down? And I was debating between him and the pitcher, but I was leaning towards it. And he's like, that Hugh Severing House, best player. He's going to be Lane Tim, like best outfielder for the next 20 years. I didn't even notice that he got traded to Chicago. Like, it took me 3 sims to find out that he traded him, and like that was in like 4 sims. He went from never being traded, top player for the next 20 years, to ending up on Wi-Fi's team. And I was just like, okay. And that's the only reason, like, I would say, like, you know, that piece. But realistically, I think there are far worse bottom traders.
And this will probably move us on to the 1B portion. I'll start off with Stang here. Worst 3 GMs you've had the experience trading with. If you don't have 3, you can tell us the first one. You know what I mean? You can tell us the one bastard you don't like. What's your thoughts, Stang? All right.
Honestly, I don't know that I actually have a 3 that I dislike. I do enjoy trade talk just in general and exploring everything when it comes to this. So I don't necessarily. There are people that irritate the hell out of me, but
I'm probably one of them. I was saying earlier before you joined that like you and I are never on the same page.
no, I don't think you don't irritate me. But there are certainly GMs that do. I would say, to kind of piggyback what Hokie was saying, was Wi-Fi is one of those people that we are either 100% on the same page or we are 100% not. And when we're 100% not, it's oil and water. And so you can maybe put Wi-Fi on that list for me, but also not. You could also be on the good side too. But I don't really know that I have someone that just is 100% on my list, because I do enjoy the trade talk, but there are certain people that I take with a grain of salt when I have those trade talks.
And I'll piggyback a little bit really quick off of what you said. Like I only have, like, I know that I put 3. I only have 1, and it is Wi-Fi, and it isn't because he's bad. It's because we work so close together that I know when you're trying to fuck me. Like, we've fucked people together. You know what I mean? And I know when you're trying to get over it, but Wi-Fi is very he knows what he wants, he knows what he's willing to give up. You know what I mean? And I'm, a lot of the times where he texts that he has interest and stuff like that, I really just I'll go and I'll look at his team or whatever. I say, we don't even need to bother, man. We're not gonna get anywhere. Like, this is just gonna be like shit talking, pulling teeth. Let's revisit in about a season or 2, when this guy drops and you can get him for the pennies and chump change that you were looking for in the first place and stuff like that. But obviously this isn't because Wi-Fi does a bad job at trading. It's because he's so goddamn good that it's a pain in the ass pulling teeth, especially when you feel like you're a good trade partner, because whether he's rebuilding and or fire selling, or you're fire selling, and you guys meet in the middle where he needs a center fielder or a reliever and stuff like that. And you're like, wow, like, and he's might be the only guy available where it's like Wi-Fi responds quickly. And that's what makes it also another frustrating, is that he's one of those guys where you'll get a text back immediately. So you want to make a deal with him, but it doesn't end up, always working that way.
It is funny that one of the words that I used when I wrote down him as one of the top 3 GMs was the word savvy, and I feel like this is kind of reflecting that with him.
For sure.
But he doesn't think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, so
Jalen Hurts is not.
That's just good judgment.
He's not. He's not a good quarterback, unfortunately.
He's fine.
Anybody who plays fantasy football knows that guy is not a good quarterback.
I didn't realize fantasy was the barometer.
Fantasy is a very big barometer for finding the fakes. The Kyler Murray fake.
Yeah, the guys who do well in the regular season but are dog shit in the playoffs. Perfect. Got it. Thanks for the clarification. I'm
But
not naming any names, Justin Herbert.
Hick, I don't know if you enlightened us on who might be your worst GM trading with, or one of your worst top three.
I think it kind of depends on how we're phrasing it, because I feel like we've had kind of evolving definition. Because in one sense, it is somebody like Stang, who like we never get along with the right like people in the trades. Sometimes to an extent, it's hokey because like he and I are on the same page, and we get along obviously. But it's like oh we're getting nowhere with this. But then also sometimes we do well. So it just kind of varies and it depends too. There's nobody that like just doesn't respond to messages. At least that I talk to, so that doesn't like qualify there. So, um, yeah, I can't think of
Well,
any that.
also, I mean, and I do have to point out, I think we can all agree, Steve is the worst trader in FCM. He
So
just
we've
is. I
actually been able
love
to do a few trades with him, and I don't know if that is representative of that the fact. But it's like, yeah, things that worked out well for us. There was one expiring pitcher we had at some point who swapped for a prospect, and it was like felt like a really good deal for us. But then that prospect like flamed out, and it's like never been good. So I don't know
Well,
how
I
to
just
decide
ruined all
that.
my future deals with Kansas City. So,
I don't
if he,
necessarily think Steve is necessarily bad. I think there's sometimes I think his impatience gets the best of him, and you don't really know which direction he's actually going.
true, I definitely think that there's a lot of the times where he misevaluates his players,
Mhm.
and maybe one person tells him something, and he might be he might be susceptible to whoever has his ear at the time. Um, so that's definitely a possibility. But overall, I think if we go back the past like 49 seasons, besides, and I don't even know, like, they say I wasn't here for Jimmy. I'm not going to talk about the whole fucking Jimmy situation because that kind of correlates to what, to what I ended up building and stuff like that. But there was a couple of trades I think I saw Steve make. I just had to text him, hey, brother, ask me first. Like, just tell me, hey, am I making a wrong move? I will let you know. Like, you know what I mean? Ask somebody. Ask Andy, ask somebody. Get a second opinion. I know that when I'm on the fence, I definitely reach out to Wi-Fi and CAD. CAD's another one I reach out to very much for some advice. Um, but moving along, since we spent a lot of time on that topic, more than I actually realized we would. Number two, topic number two, tanking. Right? Tanking's been an issue in this league almost since its inception.
I,
And by
I don't think there's
issue,
any tankers here.
Nope,
now,
don't know a single one.
no, I don't see any tankers. I see very, very ethical mogul players all on this panel. Nobody would ever think of disparaging their name by tanking, catching the ear of GB. But it is a conversation. It is a topic that has, I wouldn't say plagued the league, but it's been a part of FCM and every other mogul league probably in existence for most of its time, right? Now, is it part of the game, right? Like, where does the line get drawn for tanking? Like, all right, so some people will say, oh, it has to be obvious that you're not trying, that you're purposefully trying to lose games, you're playing guys out of place, all that stuff. And then there's situations where guys get played out of place for a few sims, and it's like, well, life got in the way. You're gonna kick me out because I had I got hurt or I had to go to the hospital or my kid was sick or something like that. So a lot of it is needs to be juggled. But where does the line get drawn? And is Andy too lenient? I guess we'll start with I'm gonna go with a little bit more of the veterans here, Joe, just because it leaks into the previous 100 years past the
Sure.
50. So I'll start with Hick. What's up, Hick?
Yeah, it's also very timely because we dealt with that whole saga last year. Unexpected, honestly. People might have not have believed me, but it was like we did not think we were going to be that bad. And then like halfway through the season, we're like panicking, trying to add players. We added like $40 million in payroll and spent like another $40 million in cash to buy players and stuff like that, and still just got to 50. And it's like that's one of those situations where, to your point, it's like, is it with malice? Is it somebody trying to screw over the league by saying, "Oh no, I'm just not going to compete this year. Just going to tune out, not do anything for the next 6 weeks." I think that's how long a season is, and then at that point, come back in the off season and start over. Because I feel like something like that is much worse than a situation like ours would have been, where it was like, hey, clearly we're trying to make the effort, it is not working. It was brought to our attention that our defense was terrible, and so we tried to improve that quickly, and that did help. But that's one of the situations where I feel like it should be a sliding scale. I do know that we have the target of 50, and it should be enforced. But at the same time, it's like somebody who's if we ended up at 49 wins, to the end of the season, that I feel like shouldn't be treated as harshly as somebody who just doesn't care the entire season. But I am biased here because we just went through it, so I'm eager to hear what other people think.
Dang.
Well, I mean, I think obviously I get a lot of shit for it every 5-7 years, it seems like, but that's just my style of play. I like to compete, run it for 5 to 10 years, however long I can stretch it. And then because I like to play the game, like I've said, I like to play the game. I like to have trade talks. I blow it up. It's not anything about, doesn't have anything to do with getting the number one pick, tanking, so to speak. It's just blowing it up and trying something else. I try to build teams differently every single time I do rebuild. There's always going to be the commonalities with starting pitching. That will never change how I draft pitching. But as far as lineup construction, people, I do that. I try to be different with that every time. The tanking aspect of it should be enforced. 50 wins is easily attainable. I think there are certain situations that you can be lenient with. In Hicks' case last year, had he gotten to 49 wins, he tried, but I still feel like there's should be consequences for not reaching that, even with leniency. Whether that's dropping your pick a couple spaces, just as there is the leniency as far as circumstances that would say, oh, I was in the hospital, there's that leniency or whatever for that. There's also should be penalties for things that even though you are trying, just because you're trying, you shouldn't get there. So there should still be some kind of penalty. I can appreciate the effort.
Now, for the record, Hick did get to 50 wins.
He did.
Now,
on a resim.
Now, how
on
that all played out was very interesting, but he did get to 50 wins. So
yeah, there is a backstory there. So RH and I were like chatting like throughout the entire night, and it was like before the sim, and then like as soon as the sim happened, the two of us are just like raging at each other, not mad at each other, just mad in general because it was going to be 49 wins. And I like slammed my laptop shut, and he said, "Oh yeah, he did the same thing," and like literally didn't even know until the next day. So that was kind of wild, and that was one of those situations where it's like, oh man, this is going to be so much worse because then one of us is going to be like, oh man, screw this league, I'm just leaving. And then all of a sudden, when it's a one GM team, which I still to this day cannot manage a team here by myself, especially with my schedule. But it was like one of those things that I didn't even realize in real time that was happening.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I know effectively that bumped me back to number 2, but like if anyone would have been upset, and I guess you can't see because there's no video, but I just did the upset with quotation marks with my fingers. But like I personally believe like resim happens. I know Andy's a big proponent about not resimming, and I have lost in the playoffs for a non-resim, but I'm definitely absolutely fine with that resim. And I'm actually somebody I don't care. I am a tanker. I will own it. I do not care. That's how I like Sang said, I build my team. I don't know, we like to have a realistic league. Has anyone seen the Colorado Rockies last year? Because they were god awful. And I'm talking like real life. There are real life situations where a team like the Rockies had 5 wins 60 games into their season. They finished with 43. No one, like, their fans will stop showing up, and I know that we don't have that quite the same way, but if you lose consistently in our league, it will drop your fan loyalty. So I've never liked the 50 mark, because I don't think that should be, I don't think it should be a set number. I am definitely somebody who, once I hit 50, I'm like, cool. Now I don't care how my roster is. Not that I'm going to play players out of place, because I don't think that should be allowed. I know for myself this past year, there were 2 sims where I had a right fielder playing third base, and he had 19 errors in like 5 games. It was not my intention, because he's a 17-year-old. So it's just that, I guess, when I made a trade and got rid of somebody or cut somebody, it called him up and just put him in that third base slot. And that completely screws with his development. So I'm not going to do that. But, I do think I have always hated the 50, and I have never actually fallen below it. I just thought it was always hilarious that somebody else was always in the push for it. In this case, it was Hick, and I know I kept posting like, oh, Hick needs 28 more wins with a sim to go, or with 3 sims to go, and it. Once again, I just was posting that because I do hate that rule. I understand why it was put in place, and it was really put in place in a very different point of where our league was, where there were specific people, like, they just tore, like, there were really bad GMs. Then there were GMs who were trying to rebuild, and the GMs were so bad that you had to tank worse than them. Like when I look now, like, Hick's team should not have only won 50 games. Like, I shouldn't have, like, my team, I didn't have to do anything. I kept train to get 50 wins. But, like, in a real life situation, he would probably get, if anyone offered for him, the GM would trade him, even if you were going to lose more games, right? So I do think that is something that could be rethought. I know there are people who are dead set against it, and so, like, I don't overly care. But, like, when I look at who's had the most first overall picks, I remember counting it up once, and I'm pretty sure it was Stang that did. And it wasn't because he finished last. It was because he trades up for it. Like, he'll get the 3rd pick, and then he trades, moves up to first. There are, I don't know. That's just my feeling on it. I think we had the don't be an ass rule that was put in place. Now, that was put in place because of me, so I'm okay with that. I don't think you should be playing, some guy who has like 50 errors at shortstop. Like, you can field somebody. We don't care if somebody's hitting 120. If he can field and he's hitting 120, no one's ever going to say you should probably remove that guy. Because, if I'm building a roster to win, I don't care if my shortstop hits 120. If he doesn't make a single error in the playoffs, I will play that guy. I don't need him to hit. So I think at the end of the day, like, having defense and having players in their proper position matters. But the season that I started to rip everything down, I traded everybody that was good, and I didn't have enough money because I was in debt. So I just signed a bunch of like 50 overall play. Actually, I think I cut so many people that I had the 50 overall people that were just auto created, and I finished the year with them.
I have not seen that before. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. That's what happens when you don't have enough money to roster your players, because you've signed, Jim Dunn to a $25 million deal to win a World Series. But, like, if you cut, I think it's 3 players. So if you have less than 3 players on your roster, then just another person gets created, whether it's hitting or pitching. But yeah, I finished the season with like 355 overalls in my bullpen. And I think I only won 2 games from July on, but I was already over 50 in July. And I went from like what would have been 22nd pick to 7th pick. And once again, like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that, but I'm not breaking the rules based on the fact that we had the 50 win line.
And
Um,
to
so
to I'm sorry to cut you off, Hope, but to your point too, when like I know that like Rocky had gotten pissed off at me one time because he had, I had and I was being sneaky. I went into my strategies and I boosted up my stolen bases. So everybody was running into outs, but I actually was scoring more runs because of it. And so I like once I had gotten to 50, I kind of did that and I kind of tried to get into the top 5 in picks. Um, but I definitely have to agree with all of you guys in terms of where the line is drawn and how it is. If we need the rule, especially since how the league used to be. If we don't have this rule, it's going to be a free for all. Um, but overall, I think we have a good group of guys who aren't necessarily trying to just shit their way into the first pick. You know what I mean? You have like 2 or 3 teams who are hoping to try to like push into September. But Joe, you've been here for about 5 years. What's your insight on tanking? I think starting from now, since we're almost an hour in, we're gonna start to try to limit each other to about 30 to 60 seconds and on our answer, just so that I don't go into the office tomorrow bloodshot, in my eyes. But Joe, your experience with tanking 5 years, 5 seasons into the league, how you feeling?
So my first year, LA only won 46 games, and it's because I came in, I think, within the first few sims, and I
45, I
got
just checked.
45. So I got an exception from Andy because obviously I wasn't doing much with the team. I was just coming in to learn and kind of do that thing. So I don't have a problem with the 50 win line. Honestly, I think it's just an incentive to say I'm going to play people who are supposed to be in the right position. I'm going to field a team that will probably be terrible and my fans wouldn't like it, but I'm going to field them. And, we got to get to some kind of win level here that's respectable enough that another team, you're at least putting up a fight for them. So I don't have a problem with the 50 wins, personally.
No, for sure.
I think a quick point here to go back what Pokey was saying. I think as much as I would love for there not to be a 50 win limit, having no limit entices people to tiptoe that line of doing shitty things and breaking that don't be an ass. And if you don't have that 50 win line, it's more on Andy to have to monitor everyone and be like, oh, is this guy being a dick right now because he's playing a bunch of 67 overalls and he's got 19 wins for the season? Like there has to be some line in the sand drawn to make it at least you can tank, but at least not be an ass at the same time. There's too many ways to tiptoe around that.
Too many people will take the opportunity to be an ass if it's
absolutely
there.
And then at that point, it's also a race to the bottom of who can get 30 wins in a year and who's going to get 25. So yeah, I do agree that there should be a rule. I remember this came up a few years ago when I voted for 54 wins being the minimum because that's a 30-year games that prior to last year I thought was always attainable. So, but I still agree. I think it should be 50 or 54. I don't think there should be oh yeah, just try your best. I do feel like you should have a number to aim for. And then do whatever you can to try to get to it if you're in risk, like we were.
yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, for me, it's just the tanker, the tanker doesn't like the 50 win line. That's just me, but it probably is there for a good reason. So yeah.
No, for sure. Definitely. I think those are great points on tanking. You know what I mean? It's 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 a it's something we're always going to have to grapple with, and it's something everybody's always going to be doing. But moving on to point three, as we round out, we're in the middle of this agenda. How do GMs looking to compete succeed and fail during the offseason? Right. And I think what I mean by this question is you have a team, right? And they've got some pieces growing, they've got some pieces already there, they got some young pieces growing, they've got some prospects in the farm they can use to ship out for ready players, right? What do GMs do to really turn that corner, right? That go from that team that almost really competed for the division to actually competing for the division and threatening in the playoffs and stuff like that. And I think I'll start off, and I think that the number one thing you can do trying to turn the corner is trying to control FA as much as possible. And I think that once you turn that corner and you're trying to stay on top, that is one of the most important things to do in the off season and in free agency. And what I mean by control is I mean you need your name on every goddamn player. Like, you're trying to make it so that the rest of the league is thinking, I might wait out the Cubs for another year. You know what I mean? Or Fred just gave him another 150 fucking $1 million. I think I'm gonna wait until next season before I start going through and stuff like that. And then there are other points where you succeed or fail where you don't do anything, right? You have a team that's ready on the verge, and you just say, "I'm gonna wait it out. I don't want to spend too much money." You're overcautious. So, starting with Stang, uh, how do you succeed and fail during the off season when you're looking to turn that corner?
I think there's one major blunder I think a lot of teams do, and I'm looping myself into that, is I think there's a lot of sometimes impatience and you letting your team develop. You have a lot of guys who see, oh, I've got a bunch of guys coming along that are getting close, or I've had a little bit of success, and getting impatient. And I'm guilty of that too. Hell, I'm probably guilty of it right now with signing Cologne. But I think there's a fine line of impatience there, and then also knowing to when to actually go for it. And not just and like you called me out of about trying to get young players that have some control. I think you also need to know when to go grab that 31, 32-year old that still looks good, still producing. I think a lot of teams uh, kind of fumble that balance of knowing when to go for it and when not to.
Pick.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm closer to that sort of space than we are right now, it's a matter of, okay, what sort of timeline am I looking at? So, like, at various points throughout our rebuild, it's been, hey, how far away do we think we realistically are? And then at that point, plan accordingly. So I don't think it's one size fits all. I do think it requires kind of a measured approach, really, with whatever you want to do, whether that's trades or free agency or something like that. If it's complementary, or you're looking to do like a half and half when it comes to your own prospects and going after free agents and trades. So it kind of all, you know, depends kind of what you're doing for. But I know like my strategy, especially with free agency, yours is different than mine. Mine is much more of a slow, measured sort of one, which is I take a look at everybody basically that might be somebody that I look at, kind of jot them all down, be like, all right, these are the ones I might want to go for. And then at that point, it's usually, you know, Saturday or something like that. By the time I start making bids, you guys have probably noticed that it takes me a couple days to start putting in bids on players. But it's like, I want to make sure I'm patient, not hasty, because I've gotten in trouble when I've signed too many players, and it's like, oh, I have signed too much payroll and I have too many players, and now I don't have room for all of them. So I do like to be more cautious with that sort of process. So
Joe.
This year is interesting for me because I felt like after last year making the playoffs, like my team was good enough to. This is the season before last. Really, really compete. Last year didn't work out, so I went to free agency this year, wanting like one of the big starters that are out there. So you got what is it, James Jones and what's his name, Marcellus, whatever. I was in on all three, and then I wasn't because I'm seeing absurd bids on those guys, just absurd. And I ended up getting like a nobody, Chris Miller, who is probably like a tier down, but I got him for 2 years at 6 million, and I think his underlying numbers are good enough. And it's probably because there was so much damn attention on the big guys that people are like didn't even look at him. He's got a low overall, but like this guy could be a good contributor to me. Is he going to be the horse at the top of the rotation? No. But is he a guy that can, get me another 2 or 3 wins? Sure. And I got him on the cheap. I mean, to me, like cash is an asset, and I don't want to blow 40 million a year, especially when I'm gonna be honest, I'm just not sure about my team. It feels like the right time, but I'm just not sure. So I don't have a team like you where maybe you want to be in there on every big name and just spend, spend, spend. But it worked for you, obviously, because you had 4 straight championships. I mean, that's something to, that's something to hang your hat on, dude. So, but I'm more like Hick, where I'm taking my time, being smart. I kind of jump in late too because I'm trying to see where the market's materializing before I go crazy.
And Pokey, you are no stranger to spending big on a free agent. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is teams don't always know when and who to go for. And like, I'll be honest, when I saw this free agency, all of the pitchers I think are equal. But to me, like of the big three, the one went for like 22 million or 25 million. Marcellus Colon went for 25 mil. Um, he went 10 million less than
Tim Bell.
the other people, except the term was longer. Like the way that the league now is with cash being taken out, I would much rather like Jim Dunn. I realize I still have him for like another 3 years, and he's completely useless, and he'll be starting in Toronto. Just so everyone's aware. But
yeah, that's bad. Look at it
yeah,
now.
yeah. If I start to be falling below the 50 mark, then I put in somebody else. But realistically, you have to have a plan with the money that you have. So, I in the nicest way, last season, every bid that PR made in free agency, I just bid on that player.
I
Uh,
know it was a conspiracy. I knew
yeah,
it. I knew
yeah,
it because I saw different people who don't even bid in free agency consistently, just start bidding. And I know it was Wi-Fi and the mellows and just egging it on. And that Hovey deal, I would have got Hovey for like half the fucking price if it wasn't for that. But
yeah.
sorry for rambling.
So all I think is like, you know what? Sometimes I'll say this in Joe's case, um, and I'm not going to tell him how to manage his team because I think he's doing great with the team that he has. Like I would rather go for like that big name player than put 8 million on that other pitcher. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, right? And that's the thing. Now I've also always put big money on like 3 players and then try to fill the rest of the roster spot. It doesn't always work, but I think free agency, you let that player go to free agency, you have to overpay. I think the biggest mistake that people do is people don't want to trade assets to win. I and like at the end of the day, I'm the first person. I'll trade every prospect I have and have nothing, and then sell my draft picks for cash just so I have team control. And I feel like PR did that a bit too, where he traded his assets to get the top players, or he drafted them as well. And then you get those pieces that you need before they go to free agency. If you are trying to build your team in free agency, you are going to lose. You may make the playoffs, but you will never be good enough to win the World Series. Now, once you make the playoffs, whatever can happen. So like, it's not to say that you won't. I just think the teams that are consistently winning have not built their team around free agency. They've maybe added a piece or two that are minor, but not very often does somebody bidding 35 million on a player end up costing or getting a World Series. So that's just my thing. I know I overspent that one free agency because I needed just speed. And I went in on 3 people with the intention to move them the moment I could. Just one of them had a really bad season, and I couldn't drop him before it bit me in the ass. So that's just how it is. But yeah, I
No,
think the
I,
whole concept of not willing to give up assets to add is one of the biggest detriments right now.
yeah, and I do have to agree before we move on to the next subject is that there is definitely a situation where guys get really attached to guys they drafted, and they don't really look at the bigger picture of understanding like the that all it takes is one drop, and we don't know where everything's gonna go. And I'm at fault for this too. I love the guys I pick, and I regard them as higher than maybe I need to be. But I think for me, I'm one of those guys where it's just like, if I find something fair, I take it. I don't look for or squeeze out every goddamn drop. And you're right about building that team. I believe if you have a shortstop, second baseman, center fielder, and a closer, that's all you need. You build that core, and you can build around it in free agency in every which way you can. Obviously not exactly that way. You need to have starting pitchers and stuff like that. But I have to agree with that sentiment that there are definitely guys just do not want to trade their prospects, their guys, unless they're getting A1 talent back. Um, Moving on to our fourth topic. We're rounding it out here. We're getting close to the end. All right, so I tried to keep this about active GMs, and the reason why is it's very easy to pick on inactive GMs with this question. Question was, uh, your top 3 active GMs and bottom 3 active GMs of the past 49 seasons, right? Rings don't need to be the biggest factor here. And by top GM, we're talking about, I would say you can incorporate success, most successful, you know what I mean, with least successful, and that's where it kind of gets gray because it's easy to point at certain guys and say, hey, he's the least successful, but the guy's never made a trade in the past 10 years, real life years. So your most successful and least successful GMs and obviously rings don't have to be the biggest factor, because as some people believe, 1 ring and 9 losing seasons is not as successful as no rings and 10 division titles. What are your thoughts? I'll start off with Hick. What are your thoughts on that question?
I think there's one really easy answer, and he's not even technically a GM, which is Andy, because I feel like every time he jumps onto a team to help, they immediately win. Like it just happened again with the Yankees, and not to say Evil Puppy didn't already have a good core, but like Andy jumps in, immediately they win. And I want to say he did something similar like the last, like I want to say like 3 or 4 seasons ago too, and it was like another great run for somebody. So he just has like the implicit knowledge of everything about this game and how to beat it, and he has beaten it, which is why he's in charge of everything, and also still just kicks all of our asses. So I feel like that's the easy 1-1 on that one. And then a couple other ones that are guys are always in the thick of things are MZY and Marty. The two of them are just like, if they're down for like, you know 3 years, it feels like it's been too long, because then it's like, oh wait, nope, they're back. Because like I think it was this season, literally earlier in the season, I was like, huh, I haven't seen the Indians or the Guardians. I haven't seen them, and then I look at the record and they're like 45-6 or something like that. I'm like, oh nope, they're back. So they're just always consistent. It's been that way for decades. It's not just like they go on runs. It's like they're always good. There's one
Um,
exception, obviously, with MZY, which is now he's stuck in the division with a team that just beat his ass so much. So,
Yeah,
aside from that,
Mizzy's afraid of a challenge. I'll let you know that right now. Mizzy runs from a challenge, and this time he couldn't run because I called him out before he could. All right, because I swear to God, he would have jumped ship the minute that he saw me win that second or third straight title. All right, but that's just obviously this is all in good fun. I don't know if
mhm.
anybody really understands, but behind the scenes, me and Mizzy really are very very kind and friendly to each other. But we like to shit talk and throw and throw shit at the wall and see what sticks out there in the main chat. But moving on to Sting. Sting, you're. Oh wait, no. Did you Hick? You didn't even finish your thought. I'm so sorry. The
Well,
bottom.
that was basically it. But one of the things I really wanted to mention about MZY was the fact that, obviously you've had this success recently, but like before you were back with this team, like he was doing well in several different spurts too. So I don't just want to be like, being snarky, dismissing that because he's been very good and he's an annoying person to trade with. I forgot to mention that earlier too.
Stang, what are your thoughts on this question?
Um, I think the one that I think is probably the most underrated in the league is Cheeto.
I almost
I
put him
don't
down, yeah.
I don't think he gets enough credit. He's always in the mix. You don't see him making crazy bad deals. You don't see him making, at the same time, you don't see him making crazy bold deals. Cheeto just has his strategy. He sticks to it, and he's consistently competitive year in and year out. And I think, yes, I think he only has maybe one or two championships, but um, how can you not put him in the top tier of just being a consistent winner? I think there's other guys. There's you have Mizzy, you have Marty, you have Wi-Fi, you have your same guys that are usually in the mix at some point for a good span. But I think right now Cheeto is by far the most underrated.
And I have to, before we move on, I have to thank Cheeto because even though he put me down, he I'm glad he did it and I didn't beat him and then get put down by the fucking Marlins
Mhm.
in the championship series. That would have been worse. Because at least at the very least, I can stick it to Armello and John and say you could never beat me. All right, moving on. Joe, what do you?
So I haven't been here as long as you guys, obviously, so it's hard for me to probably have a good opinion on this. But you know, active. I feel like this group right here. I always see you guys in the in the chat and all that. So you know, kudos to you guys. Inactive. I feel like I've never seen. I see his name, but like Cincinnati is never around, and I've sent him a few messages, and he's never responded. And I'm like, all right, I guess this guy is not real. And hey, I think it helps if you've got people in your division who are not around. Like look at the AL West. It's me and Gus in Las Vegas, and then you kind of got a little bit of hit and miss, I think, from Seattle, from Texas, and Houston, right?
No, no. I and War Priest is definitely one of those. We love him. You know what I mean? And he's on and off. He plays the game for the love of the game. TT used to be, well, about 40 years ago, TT was killing it. You know what I mean? So it definitely plays out. And glad to have you in that division too. That division needed some spark, and you're giving it a lot of life. You know what I mean? And
Just
I
bringing the
know.
Philly to the league, brother.
Now, I mean, I know that you probably, like you said, you haven't been here that long. Do you have a GM you think was probably, yeah, you said Cincy, you said Theo and stuff like that. And that I think that's where Hokie, who we're going to next, was probably touching up on. Uh, he told me he texted me before the thing. He says, "I know that you said don't focus on this, but I'm gonna focus on this."
So
So
Yeah,
I
I'm
hope
not saying anything disparaging about anybody. It's just people who I've never seen or spoken with in the league after being here now for like what 5 or 6 months.
for sure.
yeah.
Hokey.
So it's funny enough. I wasn't really gonna focus on Theo. Yeah, I mean, I think he is inactive. It is just what it is. Um, OTFS in Minnesota. I think he is the one person, and I was. He is the least favorite of mine to trade with. He is somebody who literally ghosted me. He messaged me and said he wanted somebody. I messaged him back. It took 8 days later. I messaged him every day. I got nothing. And then he started to bid on Hovey last year. So I started bidding on his player because he was interested in my first baseman. I pushed the Hovey deal up just to make it so he had to pay more. In the end, you did. But, I think, from the active GMs that have consistently been good, PR, you don't get a lot of credit a lot of the time. I
I
know
don't
you
deserve it.
have, you know what? I have been in the league basically since 2011. So I have always been in the league. You have come and gone many times, but your teams have always been good. And yes, you do the same thing that I do, which is end staying, where you blow your team up and you're going to be in obliteration mode for the next like 5 seasons. But when you are winning, you do a great job. So one, just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of that before everyone says Jimmy is the reason the Cubs won. And then Matty, I have to say he's somebody else I hated trading with for like 130 years. I have now learned how I trade for him. I ask him what he is willing to give, and I either accept it or decline it. I don't even negotiate. It's not worth negotiating with Matty, but his team is always exceptionally good. I think Mizzy also is very good, but he does the same thing as myself, where he's great for like 7 years, and then like right now he's in a rut where his team still doesn't look great, even with you not winning. I don't know if he might only win because of Cincy and St. Louis being in your division and your team going to be struggling to win 50. So he might just freely make the playoffs and then whatever happens. But, that's kind of my thing. I also think Eric and Cheeto are two people that don't get a lot of credit. Eric is probably not the most active person, but his teams usually are pretty solid. And, you know, Cheeto doesn't really post a lot either, and his team has always done well, and he just drafts exceptionally well throughout a draft. So that's kind of where I would go. But yeah,
Cheeto is the master of the late first, early second pick.
yeah,
I don't know if you've noticed, but like those picks that he makes, they always hit. And I know that obviously it's a first round pick, but like Cheeto has a knack for getting elite talent that isn't top 10 pick. You know what I mean? Just I don't know. Hick, did we touch upon you on this subject? Sorry, I might have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Stang, we spoke to. All right, so I think we got to everybody. Sorry, I had a little twisted tea and I lost my train of thought.
I was about to say
All
we're
right.
going off on a little Cheeto rant. We don't need to pump up his ego anymore. Let's just put it that way.
Well, look, man, he
He's gonna
he
text me when he hears it.
he had an amazing season. He had a historic season, and then he, putting me down. I mean, I do have to admit, boys, I did not feel the same confidence going into this playoffs as I had the previous years, where I really felt like I could have. My guys were dropping down. But when I went up 2-0 in that series, I was like, all right, I at least make the freaking NLCS. And I was contemplating saying, you know what, fuck it, throw James Jones in there for game 3. And I said, all right, we'll go Bell. Bell loses. And I'm like, all right, fuck, what am I gonna do? And I go and I throw Collar like an idiot and he fucking loses. And then James Jones pitches a gem and they still freaking win. So again, Cheeto did an amazing job getting to that final. Unfortunately, Andy steered well, not Andy. I mean, obviously Andy helped, but he kickstarted Puppy into saying, "Hey, you need this elite speed, you need this elite talent, and you need to go out and get it." And he went out and get it, and it got him a ring. You know what I mean? But definitely great season for Cheeto. So like we said, like a couple of people said, he doesn't get a lot of love, and he's getting all the love right now for sure. So with that, right, with all that talk about previous champions and the Giants, and we've spoken about good GMs and stuff like that, and you're seeing how the FA is playing out now, right there. We still have Adam Woelfel still being bidded on. I believe a lot of the starting pitchers, Bell, Cologne, and I think Cologne staying signed Cologne. I think Bell signed with Colorado, and Jones signed, I believe, with Arizona. Not completely sure, but I think Jones signed with Arizona. Where no explanation needed. Your early rapid fire, uh, 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 what was it? What was it specifically? Your
Playoff
rapid
team.
fire early playoff predictions. Yep, your rapid fire. So you're basically gonna tell us who you think is gonna win the division, who you think is gonna go into the wild card or whatnot. I'll start us off. I'm gonna go out there and say Montreal's taking the AL East. I know that that's crazy. New York just came off a win, but I think that Gilly's really gonna try to push his team to get over that hump. I think it's gonna be close. I think Montreal takes that division, and I think New York ends up a wild card team there. In the Central, I think Cleveland is going to continue to dominate there. Chicago did its thing to get to that point. Maybe they take one of the wild card spots. I think there's two wild card spots, right? I forget how the playoffs play out, but if there is a second wild card spot, sorry, I don't pay attention to
There's
wild
two, yeah.
card spots. I always win the division. Um if there's two, I think Chicago White Sox will take that second wild card spot. In the West, right? We're gonna go Las Vegas. I think I don't necessarily think that Joe did anything because he didn't feel comfortable enough to make that move. I think Vegas takes it again over there. In the East, I'm gonna go with Florida. I love New York. I love the Mets. I think the Mets will win a wild card spot. I'm still gonna go with Florida. I just think that their team is just too much talent there. I think they still have some assets to go move and grab guys at the deadline. I don't really see them. Wait, fuck, no explanation. Damn, I'm sorry, guys. Um, Moving over, Pittsburgh's gonna take the Central, and in the West, I'll go Colorado. Joe, what do you think?
Okay, I don't agree. I think I'm going to take my division. I think I know you said no explanation, but we had a Pythagorean that was totally inverse last year. I added. I'm going to take the division. Okay. Okay.
Fuck it. You can do the explanations. Forget about it.
I'm just going to do it for that
We're
one. Otherwise, I
no
love New
problem.
York. I love New York in the AL, obviously. Um, I'll go. I don't know, Detroit for the Central. NL.
What? Sorry. Go ahead.
That Central Division sucks. I mean,
The
nobody's gonna win.
Guardians suck.
What's that?
The Guardians suck. I think
Oh yeah, I forgot
Chicago.
about Marty. Marty will probably. Oh, all right, never mind. I take it back. Marty's going to take that division easily, and the rest of the teams will be like 50 and 110. And then NL East, I like Florida. NL Central,
It'll be Milwaukee or Pittsburgh.
yeah, I'm going to go with Milwaukee. I'm Mizzy. I think is just a little trigger happy. So there's too much movement there, and that's going to result in like an 81-81 season. And then NL West, let's go. I mean, you can never go wrong with San Fran. Colorado's obviously a good pick too. I'll go Colorado.
Colorado and San Fran for that second wild card spot.
That would make good sense. I think he's got a really good lineup. Obviously, he's got his starters are just unbelievable. So he's going to pitch his way, I think, and his lineup is going to hit just enough for the wild card.
And the other wild card was it? You said New York.
Oh, in the
In the NL.
I'll give it to Vegas in the AL. He'll be
Oh.
a good team. He's just not gonna win. Not gonna win the
All right.
division.
Pick What do you got, Hick?
Well, in the NL, I'm just going to stay with what you guys have been saying, which is Florida. Sorry to everybody else. It just seems like an obvious answer to me. They're a wagon. Again, I feel like they didn't have any rebuild this time. Um, Central, I see what you guys are saying about Milwaukee, but I feel like I never know how to pronounce his name, but the GM in Milwaukee, he is saying he's just not been super active, and just because he's got other life stuff going on, so I think it's really hard for him to try to build a contender at the moment. I do hope he gets help with helping the team, but I think it's Pittsburgh's division to lose this year. In the West, I don't think there's really a bad answer except me, but I think it's going to be the Rockies. And I think the Giants are right there. I think they could both win 90 games this year. In the AL, let me go back here. I actually think Baltimore is going to come back and win the AL East. I feel like they have the best pitcher, and it's a good amount of players aside from that. But there are a bunch of good teams in that division. Central, I'm sticking with Marty. I just don't bet against him when he's competing. And then the West, I think I'm going with Joe, the Angels. It's the division's not that great, and you don't have to be that like all in to win that division. Not saying he's going to win the playoff round necessarily, but it's a crapshoot, so who knows? But yeah, I don't think it's going to be as top heavy this year when it comes to teams. Because I feel like last year there was like 6 teams that were like upper echelon, and then everybody else was just kind of there. And I don't think it'll be that way this year.
Well, wild card spots for the AL and NL.
So wild card spots, I would go Wi-Fi, and then I would go ah Montreal or New York. I'm not quite sure which one. Probably New York, honestly. With Baltimore winning. NL, I got Florida. Central, I think it's gonna. I think I might. I think you can see 3 NL West teams in the playoffs this year. I think it could be Rockies, Padres, Giants. And that's not
Rockies,
just biased because
Padres.
I'm not one of them.
No, yeah, and you can't count out the Diamondbacks there too, just sneaking in. So definitely agree with you there. Hokey, what are your thoughts?
I mean, uh, New York won the World Series, and they have Peru or Perot, and they have a pretty solid team. So I think they win the AL. You know, Gilly is like one of my top 5 favorite GMs. Him and I have a lot of good chats. His team's not ready there, so I think if any other AL team makes it, it's Baltimore. But Baltimore just has never pushed to win. They have always they just have stayed. So I think New York wins. I think Matty wins, and I think you're just a couple years away from Wi-Fi going. So I think he gets the wild card from the Central. I do think Joe's going to win. Vegas has built a decent team, and obviously he keeps talking about blowing it up. If he doesn't start off strong, I think he's going to eventually do that. But yeah, I do think Joe can win, and maybe he can finally upgrade over Luke Kenny, who I think is a piece that needs to go. But I now have nothing to give him. In the NL, I do think it's Florida's division to lose, and I think the Mets probably finish second, and probably sneak into the wild card potentially. Everyone else is still kind of rebuilding. In the Central, I think it's Pittsburgh. I don't think it's the team that he envisioned, but Wilhelmsen is absolutely a beast, and Milwaukee is aging. So I just don't know if he got better, and he only won 82 games last year. So NL West, I think it's San Fran and Colorado. I think San Francisco wins just because I think they're a little bit deeper and wins the division. But I think Colorado finishes second because adding Justin Bell and Estee, I think is going to help them quite a bit. And Arizona, I think, is going to finish third. Even though they added James Jones, they're their team never really puts it together. There's a lot of pieces I don't like on that team. So that's kind of my thing. And I think you'll see a San Francisco Cleveland World Series. So that's just
Wow.
how I'm going with it. So we'll see.
Stang.
So I think pretty similar things here. I think the American League, I'm going to go with New York to take the division, Cleveland to take their division. I've been waffling back and forth on Vegas or Los Angeles. I think I'm going to give the edge to Los Angeles there, with Chicago, and I think I would probably lean Montreal as the two wild cards.
Okay.
And then in the NL, I've got Florida. If Mizzy doesn't win this division, there's something terribly wrong. Um,
We'll have to shame him forever if he doesn't.
yeah. Um,
He can
I
be
think
shamed forever for no reason at all.
I think San Francisco takes the West. I think uh, I think I think Milwaukee will sneak in as a wild card, and I'm gonna go ahead and make a little bit of a bold prediction and toot my own horn. I think I'm gonna sneak into the last wild card spot.
Oh, interesting.
All right, all right. It's Stang. Never takes a moment to not be humble.
So is the
Remember,
rebuild
let's
finally over this time?
What happened?
Is the Atlanta rebuild finally over? Because we had to do a reboot there at one point.
Yeah, no,
Um,
he'll compete for 3 or 4 years and then blow it up again. But those 3 or 4 years, he's gonna compete.
yeah.
do you think your pitching's good enough, Stang, for a playoff?
With for me now that I have Bresnan and Cologne at the top, yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Treat my sweet boy with
I say
kindness and love.
I applaud you for going for the 6 years on Cologne. I worry what years 5 and 6 look like.
Oh, me too. But that's
Joe,
it's just like I said earlier. I have a little bit of the impatient. I'm very guilty of that too, and
Yep.
it's we'll see if it pays off.
Hey, man.
plus year
I
5. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
as I said, it was good on you for making the move, man. I hope hopefully it helps. You're not in my division, not in my league, so I hope in a month's time we're celebrating your wild card berth or better.
Fingers
And
crossed.
I'm so happy you guys helped get the Cubs, those former Cubs paid. They weren't gonna make as much in Chicago. Unfortunately, they were willing to take the hometown discount, but I had to do what was best for them, let them go out and get paid. But
You want to talk about me being humble, but we're gonna hear for any Cubs player from this free agency that wins a championship, PR is gonna claim this as his championship too.
Oh, I can
He's
see
gonna
it.
be like, I got 8 in a row now.
Yeah.
for sure,
I
for sure.
actually, I'm just going to throw this out there, but of the three big pitchers, I'd be most concerned about year 3 and 4 of James Jones than year 5 and 6 of Cologne.
Fair.
Cologne is the type of pitcher that I think he pitches when he's 38 and is pitching well. And now there's the odd pitcher, but he's the guy that I debated honestly just trying to sign him and then trade him next year. But I just felt like I wanted money, to be honest, for winter ball, and I I just didn't decide to bid on anyone. So I actually really like that move, Stang. So that's my little shout out
I,
there.
I I think Stang made a good choice and going out and grabbing Cologne. Any time you're in any team in the NL East that makes their team better so that Florida doesn't win is doing a good job.
Agreed.
100%. But I definitely I think it was a very interesting free agency. Just to round it up, I think it was awesome. You know what I mean? I had a choice of whether to sign guys and trade them or let them go. And I was like, hey, let's make the league fun. Not just that, but I am going to get type A competition. But yeah, it was a really fun off season to see how everything shaped out. And just before we go, I wanted to make some notable. I know we didn't talk about them, but there were a few GMs I just wanted to shout out. Dave. Dave's a GM that, definitely we all know and love. He does a great job with, and I have a good time talking trade with him as well. J Main's not been as active as previous. He's all, Hollywood on us now. But he is rebuilding that Washington team and he's getting the pieces moving over there. Jer Bear, another great GM, another GM that definitely pulled about. I think he went to 3 straight World Series and he grabbed one. And he's slowly building it out there in San Diego. I think he got a shout out. And one more over, and then we mentioned him a little bit, TT in Houston. While not as active as before, TT's been. I worked with TT extensively, um, for a short time in Houston before I moved over to Chicago, and he was always a great teammate, great guy to talk trade with, both on the same team and against. And yeah, that is a wrap for this pod. Thank you so much, Joe, for getting this situated, for getting this recording. Thank you, all you guys. I know we're up really late on a school night. But
School
really
vacation week.
appreciate it.
At least
I
here.
just want to point out really quickly, you should be ashamed of yourself now for not shouting out Red Sox. Come on now.
Oh no, Fred knows I love him. Fred knows.
You owe everything to him.
Did you not see in the chat? People would be like, Fred, what the fuck? And I'd be like, Fred's a good guy. Don't. And then like a week later, I get the $130 million deal. But Fred's always great. I mean, I worked with him actually a little bit in Boston. When he ended up leaving and stuff like that. Fred's another guy. I'll shout it out. But it was worth it. I mean, look. I mean, what was the 130 million? What, he overpaid maybe by 20? You know what I mean? But maybe by a good 15 or 20. And it didn't make my. I think people were kind of scared I was going to go for like 6 straight. I knew that was never going to happen. I knew there was no way Mogul was going to allow me, but it was a great run. And I appreciate all of you guys. I mean, I've been here for like 15, 16 years, and it was really fun to actually be on top and do something special. I would not have gone for the 3rd ring if not for Wi-Fi talking me into it. He just said, don't be fucking stupid and go out and make history and screw how much debt and shit you're going to be in after that, but go on and do it. So shout out to Wi-Fi. I love you, man. Shout out to all you guys staying, Hokey, Hick, Joe. Thank you for making this happen. We'll catch you on the next pod. Hopefully we'll be able to do more of these things. And you guys have a good night. Stay safe.
Yeah,
Joe,
thanks so
don't
much,
forget.
Wilson.
Joe, don't forget Jalen Hurts sucks.
Yeah, that's world champion Jalen Hurts.
He bounced too. He bounced out immediately.
Later, fellas. Be well.
Take it easy.
See you guys.
See you guys.